Welcome to another tale upon a time. And this one was written by an Irish writer called Oscar Wilde and published by him in one of his books in 1888. And it's called The Selfish Giant. There was once a giant who lived in a large house on the edge of a village, and he had a very large garden, and for many years he'd gone on his travels. But nature had looked after his garden. Nature had provided a wonderful carpet of green, with flowers of all the colours you can imagine, reds and yellows and blues and purples, and trees with fruit and leaves and a small stream. And the children who lived in the village but had nowhere else to play would love to play in the garden, and they would sing and they would dance, and the birds would come into the trees and sing along with them. And then autumn came, and suddenly the children listened, and they heard the footsteps of the giant coming up the road and into his garden. "What do you think you are doing here?" he said to the children. "This is my garden. I didn't give you permission to play here." And he put up a large notice saying, "Trespassers must keep out." And he built a wall all the way round his garden so that none of the children could come in and play any more. Autumn turned to winter, and the giant stayed in his house, and forever it was winter, because even when spring came, snow was scattered over the grass like a white carpet. Ice had painted the trees with a glistening glow, and icicles hung from the branches. And the ice and the snow called in the north wind and the hail, and the north wind blew around the giant's house and blew off the tiles and blew off some of the chimney pots, and the hail stormed down onto the roof where the giant lived. And it was very frightening. And the giant pulled over his blankets and stayed in bed. And even with spring as he looked out, it was just like winter. Until one day, as he laid in bed, he heard the sound of a bird singing. He hadn't heard a bird for so long he didn't know what it was, and so he opened the curtains and peered out. And there, in the garden, were children playing, and the flowers had grown, and the trees were in blossom, and there were apples and peaches and apricots growing on the trees, and the birds were singing, because one or two of the children had crawled through a little gap in the wall and had come in to play. But over in the far side of the garden was a tree that was still covered in ice, and around the foot of the tree was snow, and above the tree the north wind was blowing and the hail was clattering down. Beneath the tree was a little boy who was crying. He was crying because he couldn't climb up into the tree, and that melted the giant's heart. And the giant went down the stairs, out through the door, and very gently lifted the little boy up into the tree so that he would be happy. In the meantime, all the other children had started to run away because they were frightened of the giant. "No, please stop," the giant said. "Don't run away. You are welcome to stay here and play for as long as you want to. This is your garden and my garden, and together we can enjoy it and have fun." And he got an axe and he smashed down the wall so that there was no wall around his garden. And the garden flourished and grew and blossomed. Some villagers came by from work, and they heard the children laughing and singing. And when they looked, they were amazed, because there was the giant dancing with them. One of the villagers said to the other, "Look, he's no longer a selfish giant." And the other villagers said, "No, I think we can call him a kindly giant." And they all played and laughed and sang, and the birds sang along with them.